Hello, my name is Joan and welcome to my introduction to inner child work. I'm going to speak to you about the origin, what it is, and why it's so important. Why inner child work? This is a short video just to give you an overview of what it's all about. I met John Bradshaw in 1989, who probably was the first innovator or contributor to the work called the inner child work. My daughter was working for him in his the institute, the John Bradshaw Center out in California, and I had listened to his PBS series Bradshaw on the Family 3 times. It resonated with me so much that when I went out to California to meet with him and with my daughter, I invited him to come to South Florida to do a presentation. And it was a 4-day workshop that it was held at first the Miami Beach Convention Center, and then a year later I invited him back to do it at the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center. More than 4,000 people showed up for these 4 days each time. And I knew in advance, based on his other programs that he had done, that I had to be ready to receive those people who were going to attend. So I quickly put together an association called Joan Childs and Associates, and taught 17 therapists that he and his clinical director and the person that did the training, his trainer, Kip Flock, came to Florida and trained 17 therapists, coming about 3 or 4 times until we all felt secure in learning what that was called the Transformational Model that was created by John Bradshaw. I just want to read you for a moment what he commented. He says, "I think it's absolutely essential. There's an enormous amount of science that supports what I began talking about in 1979 around the phenomena of the inner child work. A lot of neuroscience and even evolutionary biology has come into play which totally supports what we're doing." This is a statement that I have from John Bradshaw. And so the etiology, where it came from, I think he was probably one of the first proponents. There's been several others also. He created the Transformational Model, which is a model that starts with modifying behavior. The compulsive behavior. So if you're drinking, you have to stop drinking. If you're drugging, you have to stop using. Whatever your addictive behavior, or compulsive behavior is, you cannot really be a recipient effectively if you're using. So that would be the first stage recovery, to modify behavior. So what is inner child work and why is it so important? It provides resources, tools, and skills to reparent your wounded inner child. All of us came from dysfunctional families to a greater or lesser extent, and because of the wounds that were imposed upon us when we were helpless and defenseless as children, we were left with tremendous scars, wounds that go so deep that caused us to create really what we would call an addictive culture. So this came out of the recovery movement. And I've been doing this since 1989 and have found it to be perhaps one of the most effective modalities of psychotherapy. In the beginning, it was considered fringe or pop psychology, but it stood the test of time, and today I still use it, and I've been in practice for 42 years. I started in 1989, and when I brought John to South Florida, it created a movement, not only locally in South Florida, but all over, perhaps even the world, because today you can hook in to 12-step programs all over the world through Zoom. And I have many clients that I see in Florida that are involved in ACOA movements, AA movements, NA movements, codependency movements, OA, and Gambling Anonymous all over the world. It has been really probably the most effective adjunct to psychotherapy that I can describe. It's not perfect, but it's the best that we have. So what exactly do we do in inner child work? We try to connect with that part of us that's been lodged in us, when actually the wounds and the trauma that we had as children is lodged in a part of the brain called the amygdala. It's in the frontal lobe of the brain, right up here, right close by the hippocampus. And it wants to come out, but it doesn't allow it. It kind of closes it in because it's like a shock absorber on a car. It doesn't want you to feel the wounds, the bumps, the pain. Unfortunately, because of that, people have tried to escape and self-medicate over the years because their inner child has been so wounded. Therefore, addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sexaholics, workaholics, any of the aholics are part of the addictive family. And the only thing we need to do, the first thing we need to do, is to modify the behavior. Well, obviously, those of us who are have eating disorders can't stop eating, but that still has to be modified, and you have to learn where it's coming from. Where is the ideology? Where is the conflict? Where is the unresolved conflict from childhood? You can't do this by reading a book or going to workshops. Workshops do help, that's not true. Books, it's like learning how to swim by reading a book. If you really want to learn how to swim, you got to get in the water. Otherwise, you'll never learn how to swim. And the people that don't want to learn how to swim or are afraid to swim are the ones that are more prone to drowning than those who know how to swim. So what I'm really saying is that it's highly experiential work. The first stage recovery is to modify behavior. The second part of recovery is to do the original pain work, and that means the experiential. So there is a model that utilizes many modalities, including neuro-linguistic programming, EMDR, hypnosis, gestalt therapy, parts work, psychodrama, and more. And it's like having a golf bag filled with clubs. If you only play with one golf club, you don't play a very good game of golf. So we have different modalities used for different purposes for different people. It's not one size fits all. It's very tailor-made. And it's very effective. And the goal is to release the pain, the suffering, that we were defenseless as children to be able to protect ourselves. And our family of origin, our parents were the architects of growing up and our family of choice, or our family of origin. And because of the fact that there was so much dysfunction to a greater or lesser degree, we grew up with these unfinished business, with these holes in our soul. So many of us turned to just numb out. And of course, alcohol is a great way of numbing out, as is drugs, as is sex addiction, love addiction, codependency, and many more. And that's when addiction becomes it only creates more problems. You have the underlying issue of family dysfunctions, and you have then the drug or the alcohol, which is the secondary issue. That's why that has to be dealt with first in either treatment centers or in programs like 12-step programs and therapy. So that just sort of gives you an overview of inner child work. And I hope that you will all consider, when you use therapy, try to find somebody that is able to give you the kinds of therapy that is involved in the transformation model. Then when you come to the cognitive stuff, which is after doing the experiential, which is a completely different part of inner child work. It's called cognitive therapy, and now they've even taken it to dialectical therapy. So there's many more to go, but the original started with John Bradshaw, with me, and back in 1989, and he began in 1979. So I invite you all to consider it, and I thank you very much for your time and attention, and have a wonderful day. Bye now.